Yo, what's going on, homies? We got a new video to watch here from OhTofu, longtime DBD creator, been creating content for DBD a lot longer than I have. Has more hours than me, I'm pretty sure, well over 10,000. Plays a lot of Killer as well as Survivor, so they're pretty well versed, and I would say probably have a more neutral take than I do because I play mostly Survivor. They put out a video called Fixing Dead by Daylight with just 2 changes. As you can see here, it looks like we might look at map balance, solo queue specifically, and then maybe some common issues like tunneling and killer design. I have a lot of opinions on a lot of this stuff, so hopefully over the course of like the next couple months, I'll be putting out videos as well with some of my insight. But let's take a look, react to the video, and as always, I will credit the original creator. So again, OhTofu, go to his YouTube, comment, subscribe on all of his stuff, show him some love, and I will post a link to the video in the description down below. Let's watch. Now, I haven't actually seen any of this. I just clicked on it to see what it like his layout. So let's take a peek. We're gonna start normal speed, and we might speed it up just to get through it. It's only about a half an hour.
Yo, YouTube, what's going on? I wanted to give a quick description of this video before I just kind of let it loose because it's basically a big, long rant that I went on stream. We were discussing the idea of tunneling and why it's not fun and how you can kind of combat it. And how also combating it kind of nerfs killers and how that's a problem. And it kind of just led into this big discussion about DBD balance. And this is basically me going on a big tangent about how I would fix all of the balance issues in DBD. And I'm going to be honest, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think my takes here were pretty good. You know, I think if everything I said in this video actually gets implemented or would get implemented in like a hypothetical world, I think the game would be in an amazing space. That being said, enjoy the ramblings of a madman, I guess. I'll just get you right to it.
Okay, so this is it's kind of funny because this is kind of what we do on my stream from time to time, where DBD balance and the idea of balance usually as a result of somebody talking about tunneling or camping or survivor build this, perk killer build this, usually gets brought up, and then we kind of rant and talk about it. And usually, at least I haven't seen this at all. What usually ends up happening in a lot of our conversations and discussions is you kind of get into this whole circle. It's not like a circle jerk, but like a whole circular kind of like logic flow where it's like, okay, here's an issue. If we do this, it might nerf this way and might make killer difficult to play in this light, and this could be exploited. And it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, then we should probably touch this on Survivor or this with maps. And then it's like, okay, but if you do that, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we're back to this whole, you touch this, you start affecting things on both sides. And it kind of makes the game. The funny thing is I think the game has already kind of gone down that route in terms of like different changes and balances. So I'm curious to see specifically like how, because from what I recall here, the original topic was tunneling and how it kind of gets into some like game changers. But to me, the goal of this video would be, does the 2 changes or, the 2 primary changes that he's going to be talking about, does that conceptually help or put DBD on a more like healthy, fun gameplay style track?
This is gonna be messy as shit. Okay, this is gonna be giga messy. But I don't
Paint
care,
usually
okay?
is.
I think there's 2 major issues with the game right now that I see that I think can.
Do we want to guess it?
Like, I think if you do these,
do we want to guess it? This might be for like I might have some insider knowledge, but usually they a lot of like older school like veteran DBD players always bring up maps. I feel like maps aren't necessarily the biggest issue right now. I do think tunneling is going to be one of them. I think that is the biggest issue. And if anything, I would say to me the second one would be like honestly, I'm biased, so I'm going to say like the power creep of like anti-loop powers of killers, but then also kind of perks. Like the power creep of certain things in the game.
Okay, there's 2 big issues, and I think 2 big drastic changes can solve these 2 big issues. But they're like they're really big changes that are going to take an insane amount of like dev time. But I still think it's possible to do if they actually cared. Okay, so first thing is tunneling sucks. Like,
yeah, it doesn't feel good.
This is like a weird thing because like
and it probably doesn't feel good
to
have to do it on killer.
I'm gonna repeat stuff I've already said because I'm probably gonna upload this. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, like it sucks because why the fuck wouldn't killers do it, right? Like the idea of like survivors telling killers
it's a tool in the game and it's really
play
efficient.
in the most optimal way to win. Like you better play in like the least optimal way to win because our fun matters. And how dare you play in a way that wins? Like what? Like people boot up
Right.
games and they play to win. People want to win
Right.
games.
Okay, I'm not going to pause this as much, but I do want to touch on this because Scott Jund. Now, there might be two different trains of thought here, or like two different, like. But the idea is that tunneling is obviously the most optimal way to win on killer. Now, I think there's an asterisk in there where it is the most efficient way to win on killer if you are tunneling out the weakest link, if it is easy, if you don't really have to go out of your way. If you are committing to a second chase on a survivor that you have already hooked and you haven't hooked anyone else, and the chase is taking over a minute and they're running well and using pallets and maybe they got healed after their unhook, then that's probably not the and like let's say you have a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance or perks that are like based on unique hooks on survivors. It's probably not smart to chase that person, especially if maybe they're your obsession. They might have DS, right? There are situations where tunneling the wrong person in the wrong time can cause you to lose pressure, but oftentimes if you're able to go back to hook and tunnel people who aren't the best at chase before they get healed, it also puts them in a state of panic. And I think what Tofu's kind of getting at here, and I would agree if that's his stance, is the quicker you put the game into a 3v1 as killer, the easier the game becomes. There's less people doing less objectives. If you're chasing somebody and you have somebody on hook, then the person that is on a gen needs to go and hook them, right? The quicker the game becomes a 3v1, the easier the game is. And I would say if you can put the game into a 3v1 on killer before your third gen pops, it should be an easy game, and like an easy closeout. It should. Snowballing is also easier, so yeah.
That they play, right? Like that's just natural. That's how people are. So like the
Well,
idea of like,
I wanted to bring up I mentioned Scott Jund. Scott Jund, I think from what I've seen, a lot of his commentary on tunneling is he suggests people not do it as a tactic from like the get-go. And I think that's I think he says that kind of under the guise of like what I was saying earlier. If your sole goal in every game is to just whatever first person you hook, tunnel them, and not really take into consideration the time to down and like if they're running well the second time around and like are you extending, is the chase going on too long, then that's where you're making a mistake. You can lose the game because of that. Also a good team, like if you're playing against survivors who are smart, they will just push gens. They will push gens super fast. So you have to be careful about that. You don't want to commit too much time. You also want to take into consideration your gens as an objective that you should focus on as killer.
Don't you dare play in like the way that makes sense is like fucking stupid, right? Like it's a stupid thing for you to get mad at killers about, but at the same time, I get why survivors hate it because again, if you're playing with like a friend, like again, like I gave this example earlier, but like, say I with like my 14,000 hours have like a friend who I'm like introducing to DBD or who's like newer to the game. Or say it's like a group of friends that are newer. Like say like we're in a group and like 2 people are experienced and 2 people are new, right? Or something, or even 1 person that's new. Like if we go play games, it just logically is going to make sense that the killer tunnels out the new player every single time and then they just don't get to play, right? Like every match they get
It's
is
not
just like,
fun.
oh, I get chased over and over again on repeat. I'm not actually that good at the game, so I just die. And then like I spectate like the 3v1. Like it's just that on repeat, which is like horribly boring. Like that's so boring. That
It
sucks.
is.
So
It
like
is.
I get both sides. I get why people don't like tunneling. It makes sense. But I also feel like I get why people tunnel because why the fuck wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like it's like the logical way to win. And if you're playing killer, you're probably just sitting there alone and probably just playing a game to win because why the fuck wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So like it's this weird problem where I think it just sucks. Like tunneling in general just sucks as a concept. I don't like it. It should go away. There you go. This is my fucking notes are going great. Okay, here's the other issue. This is something I haven't even talked about
What's
tonight
the
at all
second
yet.
one?
Killers at the top and bottom are way too far apart. Like what I mean by this is like nurse compared to trapper, basically, right? Or like you can even I said news, news. Okay, we'll change news to blight. Like blight compared to trapper, right?
Okay. It's funny because I was literally in the car earlier thinking about a video I want to make that is kind of touching on this. A lot of killers, now they aren't necessarily as strong as Nurse, but a lot of killers that started coming out after Blight, and since Blight, a lot of them have good mobility and a really good anti-loop or chase ability that can end chases really, really, really fast, right? And those are the killers to me that you see played the most. They're the easiest to play, and they tend to gravitate towards being a stronger killer, whereas a lot of like the OG killers that have been designed within like the first like 2 to 4 years of DBD's existence don't really have that strong mobility coupled with like a really good chase power. And I think that's kind of the mold that behavior was missing for a long time, that they have been filling with killers in the past few years, and those are the most popular. I understand why. They're really good at what they do, and honestly, their powers can't really be interacted with as much when playing Survivor. So this makes sense. I would agree with this. It's kind of like what I said a little bit. The power creep. It's the power creep, right? I think a lot of the killers that fit this Blight Nurse area are killers that have been designed in the past few years. You don't really see them designing killers now that fit the mold of the OG killers like Trapper, Billy, Huntress, Wraith, Pig, etc.
I think Nurse is weird because she's like entirely different. Like Blight's a good example. Like
Yeah,
both
Blight
like
is.
just like if
to
you
me,
compare
that's
the
where
capabilities of these two killers,
DBD
you know what I mean?
really
Or
started
even
to
if you change on
change.
Trapper to like Myers or something. Like,
Or
I don't
killer
know. Like,
design.
if you compare the capabilities, it's like wild, dude. Like it's wild how much better the killers are at the top end compared to the killers at the bottom end. Like it is night and day difference. It's crazy. Like for instance, people sometimes ask me like, Tofu, if everybody in the game was like really good, or if everybody was the exact same skill level, is this game killer sided or survivor sided? And literally my answer is, who's the killer? You know what I mean? If the killer's Blight, it's probably killer sided. If the killer's Trapper, it's probably survivor sided.
Whoever
you know what I mean?
wants
like,
to win the most, honestly.
There's just
When
such
a
a
game,
fucking disparity in how strong the killers are.
when
that,
everyone
like,
loads in,
I don't know.
who
Right?
wants
So
to win
these
the
are like
most?
the two biggest issues. Okay, in my opinion.
The game is
Now,
balanced, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily fun.
I think in order to make tunneling go away, like you can't just like expect killers to not do it because it's not fun.
You have to
know what
kind
I
of
mean? Like,
force
they're not
them.
going to do that. I'm sorry.
Kinda have
People
to
are going to
force
play to
them.
win. They're not going to care if you're having fun. Like that's not. It's
to
not their
force them to chase
responsibility
other
to care
people.
about other people having fun. They're just playing games and doing whatever they can to win. Right.
And
What
space
you
borrowed
actually have
time.
to do is you have to make some kind of a system, do something to the game baseline that makes it so that tunneling, like,
Yeah.
what needs to happen
Base
is
borrowed
something so
time,
extreme that
base
killers
DS.
naturally, when they play the game, right, like a new killer that's learning the game, would
They
have to
just can't
naturally come to the
chase the new
conclusion on his
survivor.
own that tunneling isn't the best play. You know what I mean? Because right now is the opposite. Like any person that picks up this game right now is naturally going to come to the conclusion, oh, eliminating one player and turning the game to a 3v1 is a huge benefit. Like there's a team of 4. If I can turn that into a team of 3, that helps me a lot. Because they're right. That does help you a lot. It's a very logical, easy conclusion to come to, right? But like if they added something, like here's my suggestion, okay? My suggestion. Make it so like when unhooked, you become completely ethereal or 120 seconds, right? And what I mean by ethereal, like ethereal basically means no hitbox, right? Like no hitbox, like you can't like body block, right? Like we're not talking like off the record here, where you can like
2
you know,
minutes.
get hooked and body block for your teammates or whatever. Like no hitbox, right?
I'm assuming you do
can't
gens, it goes
throw
away.
pallets / use items like flashlights, right? So you can't like follow the killer around and go for like pallet saves or flashlight saves or whatever, right? Like you're just ethereal. You're basically like a ghost. You're basically a ghost. Like you can still be visible, right? Like still visible, but like some effects, like low transparency to know it's there. You know, like something to like know that they're ethereal, right? I mean, you know what I mean? And that lasts for 120 seconds, right? Lasts 2 minutes, or until conspicuous action
Yeah.
is taken, and then coming back to corporeal body takes like I don't know, like 3 seconds. Right? Because the idea behind coming back taking 3 seconds is like, in theory, a survivor could go down on a pallet next to a gen or something, and then you could just hang out there ethereal and be like, okay, the second you pick up, I'm gonna tap this gen and then pallet save. You know what I mean? Like if it takes like 3 seconds to come out of it, then there's no risk of like the survivor abusing it to get like flashlight saves or pallet saves or anything like that, right? Like if it's like a
Okay, so he's already thought about a workaround where you can't just instantly come out of being ethereal, immune, godlike, immortal, and like interact with the killer and go for a save. Like there'd be a transition period to prevent you from flashlight saves, pallet saves, everything. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Or like taking a hit for someone. Yeah. No, I can respect that. I just wonder how, like, if you choose to click a flashlight, would it start the 3-second timer? Like, what if you want to interact with stuff, but you don't have a gen or a totem? Yeah, I mean, there has to be a way for you to come out to do a pallet save or flashlight save.
transition that happens every 3 seconds, and that means like there's no abusing it. And also what this means, like basically what this means is that the survivor that gets unhooked basically has to like they basically have to tag themselves back into the game, if that makes sense, right? Like as a killer, you can hypothetically just follow around the ghost for 120 seconds, but like if you do that, you're gonna lose the game, right? Like generators, like here, let me just add even more, right? Like gens take 90 seconds, right? So like for instance, if you were to try to tunnel anyway, like as a killer, if you were like, let me just try to tunnel the person, let's see what happens. They would literally just not touch anything for the whole 2 minutes, and you would lose like at least 3 gens, right? Because gens take 90 seconds. So you would pop 3 gens and then start progress on other gens.
Yep.
And then even at the end of the 120 seconds, the person would probably still find like a pallet or something. Like they would start a chase at the end of it, right? Like they would run to like shack or something, and when it was about to run out, they would throw shack pallet. So you have to like also start a chase wherever the fuck they wanted to start it, right? They can go to the safest area in the map. So like you would not only be taking the worst chase possible, you would also be doing it after giving them 120 seconds of free gen time. Like there's just no way, right? Like in this scenario, there's no way that tunneling off the hook would be reasonable. It just wouldn't be. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would not be reasonable. That being said, I don't even know why the gen take 9 seconds here. Tunneling wouldn't be reasonable, I guess. I'll try to keep all my notes here. That being said, I do think like loose tunneling would still be a thing. And what I mean by this is like, for instance, I give an example today, but say like you hook Nancy, right? She gets unhooked. You completely ignore or she runs away and is a ghost somewhere. You're like, whatever, right? And then like 30 seconds later, say you're like chasing a Carlos somewhere, and you kind of see out of the corner of your eye, like, oh, there's Nancy on a gen. That Nancy I had hooked, right?
Yep.
You might be like, oh, she's already on a hook state. Let me like bail from this chase and go chase her, right? And then you could chase her, put her on hook again. That way you're like kind of tunneling, but it's like not direct tunneling. You're not like directly going after off hook. It boils down to their positioning at that point, right? Like at that point it's up to them. Because even then, if she gets unhooked again, it's like up to her. Like what do you do with your 2 minutes? If you choose to position badly with your 2 minutes, then sure you might still get tunneled, but like at least it's on you. Like you have the ability to avoid the tunnel, right? Now, the issue with all of this is that I'm sure, like, if I upload this to YouTube, I haven't mentioned anything about this yet. I'm sure there's a lot of killer players, like, punching their monitor right now. Is that it is a huge nerf to killer.
It is.
Because realistically, that is the case. Like, I'm sorry, like, I don't like saying this kind of thing because, like I said, I don't like tunneling in this game. I know it's, like, kind of necessary, but, like, realistically, I'm sorry. If you're playing, like, a lower-tier killer and you're going against, like, even, like, decent...
He's right. It is. It's a huge nerf to killer. But IMO, if the community kind of agrees, and for the most part, both sides, that tunneling is a huge issue and one of the biggest issues, and I think he's kind of on the right track. Like, yes, you can put perks in the game, and people can run anti-tunnel perks all day. But let's say you get healed after you've been hooked, you ran the killer for a little bit, it's still 5 gens, you get unhooked, you get healed, and you go start a gen. The killer maybe like at that split set, like you've maybe been unhooked for 20 seconds and the killer went across the map to kick a gen and they're like, okay, I'm going to go back and see what's happening where I, hooked this Nancy, and you're on a gen and they see you and they're like, oh, I'm going to chase her again. Like, I understand you technically weren't chased immediately as soon as you were unhooked, but if you get 90% of the killer's focus before somebody dies, I mean, that is tunneling, and it still doesn't necessarily feel good for everyone. But the thing is, like, under those circumstances, if your team is good, like, if you get unhooked and healed, and you have the freedom to then lose conspicuous actions by healing somebody else or touch a gen, like, it's essentially like 20, 30-ish seconds since you've been unhooked or so, realistically, your team should be doing fine. Right? Like if the killer hasn't hooked anyone else and hasn't really chased anyone else or burnt through pallets as like one of the survivor's resources and is focusing on like you, the Nancy, if it's still been 20 or 30 seconds and you got to reset, like your team should be doing fine. Like that form of tunneling or focus, if your team is doing what they're supposed to, should result in the survivors gaining pressure. I think it's more so when the killer's hardcore tunnel, don't even let a heal happen off on hook, immediately teleport back and are chasing you before you even had a chance to like, catch your breath. That's where it's like, it feels annoying. And some killers on like a lower tier or in like a comp setting have to play like that. I don't think it nerfs killer as a whole. But if you want killer to be, like not so tunnel focused, then this is something that would have to happen. It'd have to be a forced change that kind of prevents hardcore tunneling and maybe aids in helping against softcore tunneling. Bro, I sound like I'm directing a... Oh, Jesus.
Survivors. Anyway. If you're like not tunneling, you're probably cut.
And then they can like buff killers from there. Is where I was
like
going.
With lower tier killers anyway, tunneling is like almost required. Now that being said, with high tier killers, I think tunneling is not as required, right? Like for instance, I don't think this.
No.
It like wouldn't affect,
what's to stop them?
Like Blight, Nurse,
right now,
Billy, etc. Nearly as much as low tier killers. Like, I don't know, Dredge, fucking Myers, Trapper or whatever, right? Like, I think it's, like, that's the thing about this, is I think that this affects killers in a hugely disproportionate way, which I think is why this side over here is so important, right? Killers on top of the bottom are way too far apart from each other. Now, how you fix this? Right? Because obviously what needs to happen here is that there needs to be a counter buff, to killer. But the thing about the counter buff is that, like, counter buff should be something that affects low tier killers more than high tier killers. Like,
I think the issue here, though, is, as I said earlier, the power creep that behavior has created and like the power discrepancy between killers that have mobility and really good chase and their older killers who have like mediocre or no mobility and like decent chase or decent anti-loop, right? You look at Huntress, which is slow but has like some decent chase with her hatchets compared to, let's say Springtrap. That'd be a good reference, right? He moves faster while holding a hatchet. He can teleport literally 2 generators to initiate chase, push survivors off. He can teleport back to hook to tunnel. He doesn't have to reload. It's like him compared to Huntress, it's like old school killer, slow, no mobility, decent chase. ability, Springtrap, awesome mobility, teleports to objectives, etc., etc. Even his chase, power, which is like the same as Huntress, he can run super fast while holding it, which presents like, almost always you winning the 50-50. It's like faking your power or holding it. You just wait for the survivor to enter an animation of vaulting. It's a free hit, and he can teleport back to Hook or back to Jens. It like that sort of power creep that they've created over the first 4 years, or 4.5 years to now this 4.5, 5 years. It's like, well, yeah, obviously if that's the problem, right? This power creep. You have all these killers at the top that have access to all these tools like tunneling and stuff, which they will use if they have it. Some of the lower tier killers need it in order to do well. So if you're going to put in a hard stop to make the game more interesting, and nerf the killers up here, it's like, okay, well, now these killers who sometimes needed to use this tool, what do you do with them? So essentially, they just need to close the gap between the top and the low tier.
A bad example would be like make Jens take.
But again,
I don't know.
That's because of the power creep problem they created.
Like, I mean, maybe that's a high number. Maybe I'll say 30 more seconds, right? Like, so like Jens now take 2 minutes instead of a minute and a half, right? Like that's a terrible solution because this makes it so that killers like Blight and Nurse and Billy, who are already barely affected by this, just become even more insane, right? Like you would never be able to win a game against a Blight ever, right? But then like killers like Trapper would be a little bit more balanced. But it's like, okay, you balance this like some of the weaker ones maybe, but now the good ones are like unstoppable. You know what I mean? So you can't really do like a blanket buff that just affects everybody, right? Like whatever buff you do has to be something that affects like weaker killers more than higher killers. Which is where we come over here. Okay, this is where we come back.
That's really hard to do too.
Million fucking times.
That's really hard to do.
This is like probably the only thing I
would say it's impossible
in the entire game
to just buff baseline the weaker killers without making the strong. I mean, maybe he has some insight, but I feel like
that actually like affects killers separately based on their strength.
Map
right?
changes. I kind of predicted this.
Like credible player. Go look at Off tier list. Go look at I don't know, any credible player you think is credible tier list, and tell me the pattern that you see. I'll just tell you the pattern that you're gonna see. How about that? All the killers at the high end of the tier list are always killers that are really good at anti-loop, right? Like strong killers equal good anti-loop, and then weaker killers equals bad anti-loop. As a general rule, obviously, like other things like mobility and stuff matter a little bit, but literally, like,
I did not pre-watch this video. I did not pre-watch this. I'll be honest. I don't even really watch YouTube, or I don't really watch DBD on Twitch either. I very infrequently, hop into like Tofu or other people's chats just to chill for a little bit. This is something that like a lot of people who know the game well just understand. They just understand. A recipe to an amazing killer, good anti-loop and mobility, they're going to be an amazing killer. The faster your anti-loop power like charges and sends out, meaning the less time a survivor has to react to it, the stronger you're going to be. The closer you can like teleport or like use your mobility to an objective or like hook, stronger you're going to be. If you somehow, like if every killer also had a power like Doctor, where they have like it's kind of like the third piece to like a killer power that I've been thinking about is tracking, like finding a survivor outside of your perks. Then if the killer was amazing at all three, it'd be busted as hell. Luckily, the only one that I would say kind of hits that is Vecna. And I guess like the balancing point, because he can use his orb to kind of track survivors. But normally like killers also just have gen slow and tracking built into their
good
perks,
mobility with
really
bad lethality cannot even be strong, right? Like some of the most like mobile killers in the game, for instance, are like Dredge. Like Dredge is like insanely
his chase power
mobile,
just
but,
isn't
like,
good.
He kind of sucks. You know what I mean? He's pretty ass because
and his mobility you can kind of slow down as survivor.
His anti-loop isn't very good. Same thing with like Wraith. I mean, Wraith is like an interesting one because his anti-loop is not horrible, but like he's super mobile, but he's still not considered really good because he's just extremely loopable, right?
Yeah.
Whereas at the high end, like a really good example of this on the other end is like Nurse. Nurse has like
I would say like Xenomorph is almost a better, more realistic example if you don't want to keep using Nurse. I would say like Xenomorph is really good. You can go into your tunnels, and from what I understand, you can tell if a survivor's above you. The tunnels lead to gens almost all the time, and your power while in crawler mode can hardly be interacted with. Like if you approach a pallet and the Xenomorph is close, they should hit you. They can also hit you over tiles by dragging their tail downward through it after firing it. And in order to knock them out of crawler mode, you pretty much need 2 turrets. If you're playing against a good Xenomorph, you need to utilize 2 of the 4 turrets next to one another, because almost always they will melee around corner or tail attack as they're coming in range of one, and the fire that one produces, if they are to destroy it, isn't enough to knock them out. So it doesn't really have a good counter to their strong anti-loop, and the mobility and essentially tracking is so good. Yeah, I think Xenomorph is maybe just a
No,
better
like very
example
little, very limited
that people don't
mobility,
really
right? I know that she,
realize.
okay, I know technically she has like vertical mobility, right? Like if you're playing on like Gideon Meat Plant, she can navigate well. But if you're talking like a straight line, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but if a nurse blinks in a straight line across the map, she actually doesn't go faster than a normal 4.6 killer walking. Like a trapper can walk across the map faster than a nurse can blink across the map in a straight line. Obviously, she like goes through walls, so sometimes you can maybe shortcut around things or whatever, right? So like it's technically not like terrible mobility, but like I would say like extremely weak mobility. Like
Mobility.
extremely weak mobility. But like she's considered the best killer in the entire game because her anti-loop is so fucking strong that it doesn't matter. You can't loop her, she just kills you, right? Because it turns out like the most important thing as killer is literally just the ability to kill people. Like that's the most important thing. Like if you want to stop gens from popping, the way you do it is by fucking killing people. You know, downing survivors, forcing the other survivors to get off the gens to come on hook or come pick up the slugs or whatever. That's how you actually stop gens. You don't stop gens by like running over and kicking them. You stop them by killing people and forcing them to get off gens to do off them, right? I'll give an example here of like I want someone with high mobility. Someone like Wraith / Dredge. There you go, sure, whatever.
They have to walk you down. I mean, they're a true
the way you fix this now,
M1.
right? Like because this is what's going on. Because Hydra Killer's good anti-loop, lower killer's anti-loop. The way that you fix this is that you make it so that maps have less safe pallets. Okay? Like the way the game works right now, and the way most maps are balanced.
I feel no. Okay, I'm gonna disagree. Well, I'm gonna disagree and agree. I think I know where he's going with this. The less safe pallets, but maybe more pallets, allow killers that don't have decent anti-loop to sort of mind game them by doubling back, building up one stack of Bloodlust. Whereas, you know, will allow survivors against a killer with good anti-loop to run around the pallet more frequently if they're using their power and try and evade it. It is a decent, like more unsafe pallets, but maybe, you know, like double pallets like you see on some of the maps now. It does kind of disproportionately work better against killers that have good anti-loop. Like more than it is good against killers that like don't. But the problem is, okay, the problem with this is I don't think it helps enough. And I think it actually hurts Survivor more because I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of desync or frame stutters in the game, and I'm constantly facing killers with like 100 plus constant ping or console with like 80 plus ping, which is, it hurts. All they really have to do is like take control of the palette, or maybe if it's even short enough, you can take control of the palette. They just go back and forth once, even if you can see them. And sometimes that gives them the ability to like lunge through a palette and hit you. The problem with more unsafe palettes is ping discrepancy becomes more of an issue and more of a factor in chase, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't like that as a fix.
That like most maps have like a very low amount of pallets. Like for instance, I think I did this one time where I loaded into Cool Tower and I counted the pallets, and there was like 10 to 12, I think, between like the few times I loaded in pallets on CT. But almost everyone was a god pallet. If you don't know what I mean by god pallet is basically a pallet that's like so strong that like if you know what you're doing, like if you're a good survivor, and like a normal M1 killer without anti-loop cannot catch you. Like they are forced to kick it. There's almost nothing you can do to get you a hit, and you're just basically forced to kick it and move on. And what this does is this creates gameplay, right? Like this kind of map design basically creates gameplay where M1 killers get stuck in long chases where they have no agency and are forced to zone kick pallets to their best.
And see, I would almost say, if you put this the opposite way, I mean, this might be not that like Tofu and I would disagree with each other here, but I would almost say now the opposite is true, where I feel like because of the strong anti-loop of some of the killers, it feels like you don't have a lot of agency as Survivor. I feel like probably a lot of new players or a lot of like more novice players running as Survivor feel like they don't have a lot of agency. And instead of like having a long chase where like you're just throwing safe pallets and running, it feels it's like the opposite. It's like if you try and play these pallets, you die to the power or you die to the power plus ping. And the only thing you can really do is to drop them early, camp them, pre-drop them. I feel like a lot of time my ping is usually between 655 at the lowest and like 75 on average. Assuming I'm, maybe not multi-streaming, but I'm almost always playing against like typically what I assume to be a console player. Lately I've been having a lot of issues where a lot of killers have 100 plus ping and I'm not getting like a high ping indicator. I don't know if it's because it's like stable 100, but I often find that if I run a tile perfectly and I'm looping a like medium side or like a box rubble tile that if I go for like 2 circles, like 2 loops, I feel like I just die. Like the killer catches up to me and I get hit through the pallet. It almost feels like with how loops are nowadays, and maybe it's more so the servers causing this, it almost feels like I don't get to play the pallet very much, especially a lot of these, unsafe ones. It's like throw it early or die.
Abilities, which also like leads to chases lasting super long with nothing the killer can do. Like, this is 100% a thing, right? If you go watch like high-level 1v1 players, for instance, right?
You
Like some of the best
have to
players in the world,
leave
killer and
chase.
survivor, you'll see that literally like it'll take like a minute and a half, 2 minutes before a killer's even able to get a
Yeah,
single
you have
hit.
to leave
Right? The
chase.
whole way leading up to that, there's like nothing they can do, right? They're just completely helpless. You're just like working your way and trying to get one hit, and like this is just not okay, right? Like, this is the big issue with why this is exactly why the weaker killers are so strong. Like, if at any point survivors are able to just put you in like a guaranteed situation where you go like a minute plus without being able to create any damage, like I'm sorry, you're never gonna be able to kill anything if that's how it works, right? And that's kind of the issue. Now if instead, my notes all over the place. This is messy. It's fine. This is gonna be stuff. It's fine. If instead the maps were made like Greenville, where like say instead of like 10 to 20 pallets, say you had like 20 to like 25 pallets, right? Maybe even more. You can even have more than this if you want, in theory. But almost every pallet is unsafe/playable. And now what I mean by unsafe/playable is like, if you've ever loaded into Greenville, you probably know what I mean, right? Like Greenville is like a map where there's a lot of
Double
pallets. But most of the map are like
pallets.
not super strong, right? Like the idea is
Short
if you're against
rock
one killer with a chase tower,
pallets.
it shouldn't be this thing where it's like I made it to the pallet, I threw the pallet, I win for the next like 10 seconds. I don't have to worry about anything, right? As long as I like just time my balls correctly, which is pretty easy. You have to take this pallet and I go to the next one and we repeat, right? Like again, that's kind of the cycle that's bad. It's like I got the pallet, I win, you can't do anything, kick it, I go to the next one. I got the pallet, I win, you have to take it, move on. Right? Instead of that, if the pallets are unsafe/playable, what happens is when the starter makes it to the pallet, they can't just drop it and be like I win. It's like once they drop it, they still have to continue to outplay you, right? Like they drop it and then they have to win 50-50, or you can like try to mind game and you can actually get mind games off. And that creates interesting dynamic gameplay where like both sides have agency, right? Even if you don't.
I would agree. However, hitboxes, desync, and I guess like validating hits via like high ping and their dedicated servers needs to be better. A number of years ago they did like a huge desync patch and it felt like the hits were wonderful. Like I was making more vaults, the killer wasn't hitting me from space. Now I know from like the killer POV a lot of people were saying they were getting like validated hits that they shouldn't have been getting, and it's like right, but now it feels like desync is just, and I know a lot of people say like desync actually isn't an issue anymore. I don't know what it is, because the hits a long time ago, like not even that long ago, like a little over 2 years ago, felt so much better. Like it felt more honest from like a survivor POV and what we were seeing compared to now. If they could go back to that, or even like a halfway point, I would be fine with more unsafe pallets, because I do like when you have good ping and the killer has good ping and you're playing some of these pallets and the server isn't hitching, which is so common nowadays, playing them feels fair. Like the 50-50s, the mind games, it feels fun and it feels interactive, which a lot of people, that's what they want.
Agency where like a killer like Myers or a killer like Trapper has agency in their chase. Like they can actually create damage even against good survivors because you can force them into risky situations where they're not guaranteed to be safe. So like for instance, if I can show you chases, and maybe I don't know, people care enough, maybe I can give you more examples in another video or something. But like if I show you examples of like a 1v1 chase I did against a good player on a map like Suffocation Pit and on a map like Greenville, there's so many more opportunities, right? Like on the first map, it's like you literally just sit there and kick pallets for a whole minute straight until you finally get into a situation where maybe damage can happen. Whereas on a map like Greenville, it's like you're constantly able to find yourself in scenarios, right? Like I mean, okay, to be honest with you, Greenville actually does have a good god palace too. Like, I think even Greenville's a little bit too strong on palace, to be honest with you. I think there should be more weak ones there too. But point is that there was a lot of players.
It is strong.
It'll be fine, right? Like I think like there should probably be like, I would say there should be like maybe like 3 maybe like safe pallets per map, right? Like I think Shack pallet can be safe, maybe like a couple maze tiles that are safe, but I think maps having like 8, 9, 10 god pallets every map is just fucking crazy, dude. It's like absurd. This would make it so that like, okay.
I'm trying to think what map has like that many god pallets. Trying to think. I'm assuming, like, is he considering a long wall window tile with a pallet of god pallet? I mean, it probably. It really depends on the killer. I mean, I guess if they're just like like a M1 killer, like if they're a trapper with no trap, but like no killer's really designed that way. Yeah, I suppose. If I were to just throw out a random number, I'd probably say closer to like 5 to 7 god pallets is maybe the most you see on some maps. You could, I mean, I guess you could make a case for the Gideon map, the game.
So what happens here is you can even in theory jack this number up to like 30, right? Because what happens here, I'll just say like even higher.
Pallets everywhere.
Whoa.
Give me.
What the hell? Why is he doing that? I don't know why I did that. That's okay. It's fine. I was like that. Like the idea behind this is that like even if you put like 30 pallets on a map, they're all kind of bad. What that also does is it actually nerfs kind of the high-end killers as well. Because if you guys don't know this, if you don't know much about, see, like this is tough because I'm not sure if everybody knows a lot about like how to play. But for instance, like against like Blight, for instance, Blight kind of ends like a lot of time Blight ends up in a scenario where a lot of Blight players won't even try to outplay pallets. They'll basically like if you try to greet it, they'll hit you, right? So you have to like pre-throw it. And then once you pre-throw it, they just zone kick it and then catch you before you get to the next one, right? Like the idea is that there's a lot of high-end killers that punish you just for having resources. Like think about the zoning killers too, right? Killers like artists who like set up a crowd pallet, set up a crowd pallet. Like if you have like a very large number of pallets, all these like anti-loop abilities become kind of weaker because you have more and more resources to use. And that's every killer. Every killer in the game has anti-loop becomes a little bit weaker when there's more resources because if they zone you away from one resource, you get to another resource, right? That's kind of the idea. Like, there's constant resources. Like the idea behind this too. The idea behind this too is that
There'll
there
be
would
more
no dead
pallets in
zones,
proximity
right?
to where
like
you
no,
are,
like no dead
but they
zones.
won't
Every
be
single dead
free
zone,
loops.
every dead zone can be replaced.
Yeah,
with a very weak
please,
palette slash window, and
please.
it's gonna be better, right? Like you replace
There's
every single dead zone
so
with a super
many
weak palette. That way there's at least an option. Even if the bad option,
stupid
even if the option
dead
is like 90% in the favor of killer, at least the survivor has something they can work with, right? Like something. Something is always better than nothing, right? Always.
Yeah.
So like do that, right? Like put resources
a Z-wall in every dead
that way the chases
zone.
are constantly dynamic. Like killer's anti-loop will become way less like brain dead, right? Instead of like I know a lot of people complain about like artists just being like put down crow and now suddenly that palace not usable, put down crow now that palace not usable, now I die, right? Like instead of it being this like brain dead thing, there'd be so many resources that you'd have to like really think about which ones you're shutting down and which ones you're forcing the survivor to. And even once you force them there, they still have a chance to play it, right? Like it makes every single character's chase more dynamic, right? Everyone's chase becomes more dynamic. There's way less like 100-0 situations where like one side just wins and one side just loses. Like no matter what the killers, whether they're weak, strong, whatever, every single chase becomes way more dynamic. It's like the perfect chase. The only like I think there might be some exceptions. Like I think for instance Clown might actually become OP in this scenario, to be honest with you. Like I think Clown would actually need a nerf. Like there's a couple killers like that where like if you could like even like maybe Freddy too, like maybe Freddy as well. Like I think killers that are able to consistently make you slow might actually become OP in this scenario. So that might be something to kind of watch out for, right? They might need nerfs, right? Possibly. Because I think like people that make you slow with very little downside on their own side just kind of would shit on you here, I think. So that might be the only issue that I see. Beyond that, like every high tier killer. And also the other argument I hear about this sometimes that people argue against it is like they're like, what about the new players? Oh my god, what about the new players? Well, guess fucking what? Chat, guess what? YouTube, when I upload this, guess what? New players don't fucking know how to play safe palace anyway, bro. That's like literally what being a new player is. Like having more palaces. Okay, I would argue that being a new player, like when people are new to this game,
most new players just run up to the god pallets and the safe pallets and insta throw them and don't know how to loop them. So then the good players are left with crap pallets only.
And you know, I could be wrong on this. I
and
would
a bunch of
new to this game,
dead
killer is
zones.
usually way more dominant than survivor. Like when there's like a killer doesn't know what he's doing and a bunch of survivors that don't know what they're doing. Usually the killer's gonna win, right? Obviously when you're new to killer, I think the issue is that you sometimes go against people that do know what they're doing, and that's when it feels bad. But I think when everybody, like if you got like 5 brand new players and hopped in customs and just played a bunch of matches, I'm pretty sure the killer would be winning more often than not, because like that's just usually how it goes. But this actually helps that, right? Because like when everybody's new, you just want a lot of resources, right? Like for instance, having 25 pallets is a good thing, even though they're like really weak, because new killer players aren't gonna know how to handle that. Like new players, like if anything, you've seen new killer players fuck up and they'll just like kick on safe pallets all the time. It happens always, right? That's like a part of being good at this game, is being able to identify what pallets you kick right away and what pallets you don't. So having just like 25 pallets or whatever, or some high like crazy high number of pallets as a new survivor player is just gonna be even better, right? It like literally helps you and it rewards skill on both sides. Like once you start to realize how you actually play the pallets on both sides, and like you know, then you get better in it. It just makes everything dynamic, and it makes it so that like your knowledge and like skill in the game shows. But I think new players would literally do better. They would have more resources to work with, and killers aren't gonna play them correctly anyway. So who fucking cares? And anyway, that's I think my rant. I don't know. I've been ranting for so long now.
It's so funny because he's out of breath. It feels like he's out of breath because I'm watching the video sped up.
I think it's the end of the rant. I think if they did this, in the same way that they did the thing on the left, right? Both these changes happened. There might need to be a slight additional changes too, right? Like I still think like I think removing tunneling altogether might still be a bigger deal than this, maybe, like possibly. But even so, like this right here, this change on the right, definitely, I promise you, brings the killers closer. Like I promise you, if they did this, like killers like Trapper, Myers, like.
I agree, but I don't know if it's enough. I think what they would also. I don't know, because I feel like they've already kind of tried to do this with a lot of map changes anyway, and I think it's kind of made the good killers too good. I feel like he's okay. The question is, how do you measure this, right? Yes, like I can see conceptually that it buffs weaker killers more than it buffs stronger killers, right? But here's the problem. When you think about this just purely conceptually from like a mathematical basis, I sound like a nerd. Let's say you got a killer like Trapper or somebody, and their power level is 60%. And you have a Blight, and his power level is 90%. If doing this buffs lower killers by 30%, that's 18% additional on top of the Trapper. He goes from 60 to 78, let's say 80%. Whoa, that's cool. Now this Blight, let's say it doesn't hit him 30, okay? This, let's just say, because I don't know if this would be a nerf to them. It would just bring them closer. Because in theory, it could also buff Blight and other killers by maybe only like 10 or 5%. But that's still, like, let's say it's 5%. That still means that Blight goes from 90 to like almost 95% power, right? And sometimes that small change on somebody who's already really strong could make them theoretically like uncontainable. That's the one thing that I worry about, and I think you've kind of already seen this a little bit. Here's my example. They wanted to change maps and make a lot of them smaller, and you know, some people feel like they wanted to make them relatively the same size. Maps in general have gotten smaller. Pallets in general, loop money tiles have gotten unsafer. And I think all that's really happened for the most part, like the takeaway is the strong killers that already are strong and have map mobility and anti-loop are still better than the killers who don't. And they're the killers who are played more often. Because just like take this instance of tunneling, for example. It's a tool in the game. If you can do it and use it, why wouldn't you? If you could play one of 10 killers that are better than Myers and Trapper and Wraith because they have a really good anti-loop, and now their mobility, instead of taking them almost 70% across the map, takes them nearly 100 because the map is smaller, you're still going to play one of these 10 that has still been better. Yes, maybe their buff wasn't as big as like the lower tier killers, but maybe their buff was just 2%, or maybe they didn't get buffed at all, but they're still better. To me, what you have to do to incentivize people to use the lower tier killers is you actually just need to take their powers and start bringing them closer together, in my opinion. To me, maps and such, all that stuff should be done last, and you should be finding a way to bring killer powers closer together if your goal, or if like the case of say what Tofu might argue, is to make lower tier killers closer to higher tier killers. I think you need to start with the root of the issue, which is the power design, the power scale creep. I think stuff like perks and maps should be done last, if that makes sense. Because I don't think you're really touching the true issue. Because if you're going to subscribe to the notion that tunneling is always going to exist unless you force it to not exist, then isn't people always choosing the stronger killers because mobility and anti-loop going to exist unless you make it that the balance of those things isn't as insanely strong as the balance of like current lower tier? Does that make sense? I hope so.
Like normal M1 killers would jump up tier list, bro. They would fly up tier list. Like they would instantly become so much stronger because you could actually get downs, right? And killers with high mobility would be way better too. Like Dredge would become a very strong killer. Like Wraith would become a very strong killer. Like I think mobility would probably end up mattering a lot, right? But also the weaker killers have more resources. They get brought that. It would be a way to kind of like scrunch tier lists, right? Killers with the high and get weaker, killers with low and get stronger. It just helps all that, right? On top of that, then you could.
Instead of it scrunching the tier list, this is what I think would happen. It'd be like an unproportional accordion where you're pushing the bottom up. Like let's say you start like these are the top killers, these are the bottom killers. Bottom killers go up, but then the top killers still go up a little bit, but it's only like 5%. The air in between, the discrepancy is still going to exist, and I think it's going to be too large for it to have a major effect on what people play.
Destroy tunneling, right? Just completely ditch tunneling, and then with all the killers being close in level, you can balance around that, right? Like if you do both of these things, and then like killers like feels too hard, then just make gens take a little bit longer or whatever, right? Then you can bounce around it. But as long as the killers are all relatively close to each other, that allows you to make baseline killer changes, right? Like this bad example.
I agree with that. I agree with that because that's kind of what I said. But I feel like you really need to tweak killer power balancing first.
I said like this bad example becomes a kind of decent
or that's the most important
first,
piece,
right? Because once the game is actually like once all the killers feel similar in strength, then you can start doing baseline changes, and bam, the game's perfect. So that's there you go. That's the end of my crazy fucking MSP rant. This is how you fix the game. This makes DBD an amazing dynamic game where neither side feels helpless pretty much ever. I think in a scenario neither side would feel helpless unless they're just crying about being bad, right? Like I know like what would happen if they did this? What would happen if they did this? I know a lot of Survivor players who have been spoiled by how strong maps have been would cry and cry and cry. Like for instance, I know a lot of people cry about Greenville because they're like, but the pallets are useless. And it's like, no, you just have never had to play any pallet that isn't super safe. Like unsafe pallets are not useless. Like they're just played differently, and people have to like adapt to the different play.
That
so
I agree with.
People would be a little salty at first, and especially Survivor players would be like, these pallets are terrible. Blah, blah, blah.
I agree.
But, like they get used to it. They would eventually adapt and get used to it because they're not terrible. They're playable. It's just that people aren't used to it yet. This is how I do it. This is how I fix the game. I don't know. That's the end of my rant. That's how I fix the game. If they ever did this, I'm very confident this game would be a million times better. Like what would happen is that games would be way less about like tunneling and chasing the person off hook, and it'd be way more about like hooking somebody and then just finding a chase and like killing that chase and getting damage, right? Like it'd be way more focused on like the killer actually just like killing the shit, getting damage, and then like maybe like passively tunneling somewhat, right? Like maybe loose tunneling. But it would be way like all the gameplay would be way more dynamic. It wouldn't be like, oh, let me find the weak link Meg and just kill her like right away. Like that shit would be gone. It would be gone. It would be all about actual interaction and like aggressive play. Killers would be out there chasing other people after hooks and shit. It would change everything in such a good way. That's it. That's all I got. Yeah, I know the map changes wouldn't change nurse, but nurse is a whole separate problem that like I don't even know how the fuck to address, to be honest with you. Like I guess the only way you change nurse is by making maps bigger, but like nurse is a whole separate issue, bro. I don't know. There's really no way.
Exactly.
Nurse is playing a whole different fucking video game, so there's really no way to include that. That's it. That's what I'm saying though. That's all. Guys, editing Tofu here. Don't mind me talking while old me is still moving my mouth. That's probably confusing. I don't know. Whatever. I should probably edit this in a way, but I'm not going to. Thank you guys for watching this. If you guys agree with my opinions or you disagree or you have any thoughts on them, share them in the comments. I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. Feel free to share whatever you think. Thank you guys for watching this. Like the video, subscribe, all that jazz. Come hang out with me on Twitch. We play the game and talk about it quite often over there. So feel free to do that as well. Thank you guys for being here, though. Until next time, I'm out of here. I'll see ya. I'll take care. See ya. See you later.
I'm not really going to delve too much into the comments because this video is already pretty long. Yeah, no, I mean, I mostly agree with what he had to say. I mean, I think I foreshadowed a lot of what he was going to say, as you see, because like a lot of people have had these thoughts and have been talking about this for years. I would maybe, and I don't even know if Tofu and I would necessarily disagree on this, but I do believe the better way to bring killers closer in terms of power level is for behavior to really take a look at like the three things that make killers good, which is like mobility and like, you know, mobility as it pertains to being able to use it in chase and being able to use it to go from objective to objective, including hooks. So mobility, anti-loop or chase power, how strong it is, how effective it is, how much interaction and agency the survivor has to play against it and to try and counter it. Not meaning a complete counter, and then tracking. You know, like tracking survivors with your power, because realistically, you can use perks in your kit to kind of make up for which one of these three areas struggles the most. Typically, what you'll find is some of the tracking or chase is built in with the perks, and like slow down, you know, people kind of just put in slow down as like that fourth piece or like third piece, and then they don't really care about tracking, or they maybe just have like one perk for tracking, and then they have mobility and anti-loop in their power. I think finding a way to bring the lower tier killers up without affecting things other than powers and add-ons, I think would be better. And then I think, kind of like he said, you could look at maps, you could look at gen times for like a end game balancing sort of thing. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. As I said, I'm going to attach a link to this video so you can go drop it some love, watch it from his POV as well. Watch it, you know, as you're going to bed, normal speed. But yeah, thank you for watching, and maybe we'll do another react video soon. Very good video, very good video. I love the opinions. Love Tofu, great content creator, very wholesome. Been doing it a long time, so go show him some love. Peace.